Sometimes, especially with underrepresented entrepreneurs, we're just so grateful to be in the room that we don't think about how am I going to monetize this room once I'm there.
Not only booked every client a podcast every month, we've booked at least 3 for every single client that we've ever had.
Their biggest objection is like, how long is this going to take to work? If you could show them, we've helped some people in 24 hours, but everyone within 30 days, there's no reason they wouldn't try that out.
Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy.
Hey guys, welcome to the Speak Your Way to Cash Show. We have Carrolee, the podcasting queen, with us today, and she's an incredible member of the Speak Your Way to Cash Mastermind with us. And she's going to be telling you everything you need to know about getting on a podcast. And then we're going to do a hot seat episode to coach her through her biggest business breakthrough. You will not want to miss this. Get your pens and paper ready because I'm telling you, this is one of those take notes episodes. Carrolee, go ahead and introduce yourself to the Speak Your Way to Cash family.
First of all, I love the intro.
Yes.
I love it. My name is Carrolee Drummonds, and I am the proud CEO of the Podcast Pitching Society, where we help underrepresented subject matter experts get the visibility they deserve, frankly, and also get in front of more qualified audiences using other people's podcasts.
I love that.
Yeah.
So before we get into your hot seat question, why is podcasting what every expert should be doing right now?
Honestly, if we haven't learned anything else in the last couple years, is that you cannot depend on anything online, social media, etc. You saw Facebook go down. You saw they changed their policies for different things. You've seen so many different variables that you can't control. You have to figure out a way, and you taught me this, and we talk about it all the time, to own your own audience.
Mm-hmm.
And podcasting is a way for you to leverage someone else's audience and then create now content that you, into perpetuity, is evergreen, now own. There's a ton of things that we teach our clients that go well beyond just the conversation of a podcast. But yeah, I think the reason why it's resonating so much is because we've kind of grown tired of the bite-sized, whatever. There's a lot of faking happening online. And so people are looking for ways to like really connect and that human aspect of things. And frankly, it's really hard to fake that you're an expert on a podcast. Because after like the first 15, 20 minutes and you're having conversation, be like,
yeah,
something is off, right? And so with people that are actually experts, it's a great way. It's probably one of the best ways, I would say, to really showcase, hey, I know my stuff, and to get in front of the people who are not just fans, but they're potential buyers. And that is the key difference.
So for someone who's out there listening, do you recommend people have their own podcast, or do you recommend that they guest on other people's podcasts?
Both. And what a lot of people do is they'll start their own podcast, get super excited, they launch it, and then that's it. Yep. They're not going on other people's podcasts to promote it. They're not doing the other work. And so if you have your own podcast right now, please, go on a podcast tour to actually promote your podcast. And if you are a business owner who's looking to start your own podcast, that is one of the steps that you absolutely need to do. If you're guesting, actually one of our clients recently, she's guesting so much and she's getting the feedback of like, hey, you're really great. You should start your own podcast. And so now she's in the process of doing that, but she's going to use her podcast guesting experiences and those opportunities to be like, hey, I'm starting my own podcast. So it's going to be promotion, almost like a lead up to when she launches.
So I was talking to someone today, and she has a business of pitching speakers for speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. And she was explaining like her process. And one of the things that she said is like, after 6 months, you may get 1 to 2 speaking engagements, which is like, honestly, not a lot. Like that's not sexy, but it was honest. You know what I mean? And so I appreciate that. And then she's like, now after that first 6 months, you get momentum. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what we teach, is like how to pitch, what to do. So when you're pitching people for podcasts, how long does it take, and how many pitches are you sending out per client until they land their first feature? And are you just reaching out cold?
Both. So we to answer the last question first, we actually pitch to podcast producers that we have relationships with. And so because I've been on a bunch of podcasts myself, I'll reach out and be like, hey, I think I have a perfect person for you. Have that conversation and they get placed. And then there's a ton of cold outreach as well. But what we do is really get to know our clients and what their goals are and then actually look for the podcasts that match that instead of just like blasting it out. So we've actually gotten an entertainment attorney who's now on tour with her clients, by the way. We got her booked on her first two podcasts under 24 hours after we started pitching for her. Yeah. So, and we've gotten one of our clients, her package is 5 podcasts per month. We got her 7 in under a month. So it
can go a lot faster.
It can go a lot faster.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what are they seeing? Like, they go on these podcasts, what kind of results are they seeing after they go on them?
So honestly, you can see results before you even finish the podcast recording. One of our clients who was in the STEM field, she connected with someone who was in the tech field, and they like fell in love with each other. And before they even recorded the episode, have already decided to partner and to basically share audiences with each other. And so that was a win where she's now able to basically double her reach without, again, even going on the podcast already. And then they're building that relationship beyond just the one conversation. I've had people who, because of one podcast, where I think it was actually someone that came on your podcast right after that, was able to land discovery meetings on their calendar just from that one episode. And so there are tons of different things that you can do. And what happens a lot, people go on podcasts and they're just interested in the conversation. You should very much be talking about like what you do and what makes you different.
Yeah.
Just like how I was able to say, hey, we actually killed it.
Yeah.
And got somebody booked in like under 24 hours. That's going to perk up and be like, oh, okay. Well, all right, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like being able to really prep yourself so you're going on here with intention, which is why, again, the right audience matters, the right podcast matters, and having the right, what I call PowerPoint matters. That PowerPoint is not just a speaking point. It is 3 layers. It is your expertise, stories around your expertise, and then actual, hey, this is what I would do as an offer connected to it. So your business, your expertise, the story. The story is the hook in, because that's what people remember, right? And then you're ending it with, here's a result that I can actually get for you. And by the end of the podcast episode, people are often, okay, I need to figure out who this person is.
Yeah.
And they go and look.
They're Googling.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're trying to figure it out.
Because from there, we're doing content for you. They're not going and finding your content. They're seeing that you match what they've heard.
Yeah.
And that's how you actually get some people booked on your calendar from it.
I love that because, you know, the first part of our paid methodology in the Speak Get Ready Cash book is the P stands for press. And the press that I get the most excitement about from people is, oh, you were on TV. It was so great. And I've made no money from being on TV. And I was a recurring legal expert on a news station in Chicago. And that just did not make me money. But I have made tens of thousands of dollars after being on the right podcast. Like I did Amy Porterfield's podcast, and it was like, that was probably one of my most lucrative podcasts that I've been on. We did the Boss Babes podcast, but like podcasts have been, you know, when you put up the podcast icon, nobody really goes crazy over that. But those are the forms of media that's made me the most money. And there was a stat that said 50% of people who listen to podcasts finish it, and that they're the most profitable form of media. So I always tell people, and I was getting on these podcasts before I had a big following or any of that.
Exactly.
Those are the best shows to be on. Over and above TV, you need to be going on podcasts.
I couldn't agree anymore. And the statistic is actually, you're right, it's gone up.
Yeah.
It's closer to 70%. And what you need to understand, and I want to look to camera, okay? The presidential candidates both sought out podcasts to go on, whether it was Joe Rogan or other kinds of podcasts. They knew that's how you reach millions of people that are not turning on the TV, that are not focused on traditional media. And there is no knock to traditional media. It has its place, right? But this is now a new type of way to make money. It's not about the following.
Yeah.
A lot of people are stuck on numbers about like being popular. Do you want to be popular or do you want to be rich?
Right.
You want to make money? Because that's really what it is. And this is why for us, our unique value prop is not that we'll get you placed, is that we'll prep you to where you're actually making, and I'll use what you say, cash conversations, right? For us, we say converting conversations. It is really the hugest piece of that. is understanding the value on it. And if you understand the value on it, you're not going to just go in there to have like a cute conversation like, oh, yeah, key, and we're done. No. And I think that's what made your conversations with Amy, etc., profitable for you, because you went in with intention. You didn't go in with a huge following. The point was, hey, these people are going to know who I am, what I do, and the solutions that I offer to, the people that I serve. And by doing that, they're going to go out and search and seek you, and the other content that you have seals that deal.
Yeah. And you have to be more strategic. I think that's the thing, is like, sometimes, especially with underrepresented entrepreneurs, we're just so grateful to be in the room that we don't think about, how am I going to monetize this room once I'm there? I mean, I just spoke at Funnel Hacking Live, and it was like, I'm not just going there to speak. I'm going there to sell and serve. Like, how am I going to make sure that I am showing up, helping Russell and the organizers and their goals and their sales initiatives, but also making sure that I am positioning myself as a thought leader in my own right? What does that look like? And that just involves strategy. And sometimes you need someone like you to be like, all right, no, you're not just going on here to talk. You're going to go on here to make money.
Intention,
yeah.
You talked about that, and it struck a chord with me, because I never called it that with our clients, like what we were actually teaching them. But that's what we're teaching them, is like how to do this with intention. You're planning it out. Even the way we pitch you is intentional. The things that it's kind of like using it the way that media will go, okay, it's March coming up, Women's History Month. We're going to pitch you for a news segment talking about women in business okay, do the same thing with podcasts, right? Like, pitch in that like unique way of like, okay, I understand you used to do DEI, you no longer do it, you pivoted. Now DEI is a whole thing. Now we're going to pitch you to podcasts to talk about your experience in DEI, why you transitioned, and what could happen right now with people who are trying to transition out of that. That is how you're going to get on podcasts, and people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing now? You know what I mean? Oh, I'm a fractional COO. Shout out to LaTanya. Like, that's how you do it. And that's how the intentional piece comes in there. It's not just coming in and having a good conversation. Like, we can all do that. Like, if you've made it that far in your career, and we have some incredibly smart, intelligent nerds, right? Like, they know their stuff. That's one thing. I go in and I try to help you. Now let's turn this into a story that people are captivated with. And then we show them what you can actually do outside of, okay, I'm an expert. What does that look like for me?
Yeah.
Right? By the end of it, they're like, I like you and I want to work with you.
Right. And that's what you want. Okay, that's really good. So it sounds like you're obviously great at getting people placed on podcasts quickly, particularly experts. So what question do you have for the hot seat?
So, because we just talked about that, we're good on the individual piece. I want to dip my toe in corporate contracts and either doing workshops or packaging what we're doing right now for corporate. And one of the reasons why this is like very, very current for us is I'm having conversations with more of our clients who were in corporate or still are in corporate. And I'm realizing like, wow, I can actually talk to an entire department the way that I'm talking to this one individual right now. One of our clients, actually, she started her business now, but she started doing podcasts when she was in corporate. And one of the reasons why is because she was doing all this innovative work and they wanted to showcase that. And so they put her on some podcasts, and then she got speaking gigs to talk more about, the things that they were doing from that. And so even for folks that are in the corporate, I feel like there's a lot of value in that, not just on the individual piece. So I'm curious to hear like how you would package that, because I know that's your whole to make it appetizing, especially if I'm focusing on underrepresented, especially in this climate.
Well, I think one thing would be the underrepresented piece wouldn't even need to be you wouldn't have to lead with that, right? If it's for a corporate contract. So one of the things I would say, it sounds like there were two different things, is like, how do I speak about this in corporate? And it would be personal branding. So all of the people who do like styling or media, they kind of fall under personal branding, and your client would be the director of marketing. And then what you would do is you would go in and say, hey, I would love to do a personal branding workshop for your executives or for your managers about how they can package their personal brands to grow their careers or enhance their careers internally and externally. And the external would be bring in business for the actual company. So that's one. Your front end offer could be that workshop. And then your back end offer, once they hire you for a workshop, is like, hey, I would love to show you our packages for actually expanding the personal brands of your executives, and it's a done for you service. And the thing that we use to expand their brand is podcasts. So we will actually pitch them for a set amount of podcasts per month. And I know they're busy, so we'll probably try to place each of them on at least one podcast per month. So 12 a year, and that should expand their brand voice. And if they ever leave, then whoever you replace, they could use that spot. So this will be for up to, 10 executives. It's flat rate, right? And so maybe that looks like, for each executive, it's $2,000 per month per executive. And then it's, that's $20,000 a month if you do 10. And then it scales up. If you do 100, that's $200,000 a month. So what you want to look out for is just making sure you have a back-end team that could do the pitching. And I was talking to someone who has a done-for-you service on speaker leads. And that's something we've been considering is like, should we become a speaker's bureau and just pitch our clients? And the thing would be figuring out by matrix how many, because there's basically 3 parts to our process. The first part is research. How many researchers would we need per person? And that's what you'd have to figure out. Like for every 10 executives, we need 1 researcher. Like for every executive, we'd have to find at least 100 podcasts a month to pitch them on, right? And so like, how many researchers could do that for 10?
Yeah.
Could they find 1,000 podcasts per month, 1 researcher? They probably could. That's probably doable, but you'd have to test that out.
Yeah.
And once you know the research part, then it's like, okay, how many pitchers would we need? How many people per executive or per client would we need to pitch these people? And that would come down to how many pitches would they get per month. And so you would really want to narrow it down to like, we're going to research 100 podcasts per month in this package. And then we're going to pitch you for 100 podcasts per month. And then we're going to finalize and book you for at least 5 to 10 podcasts per month. And like, how many people would you need to do that? You would have to break it down into that level of detail so that each individual person I hire for research has a capacity of 15.
Yeah.
And if they have a capacity of 15 and I get a contract for 200, I need to hire more researchers.
Yeah. No, you're making a good point, because right now the way that we're structuring it is this way instead of that way, meaning there's 1 person to every 3 client right now. So that 1 person is pitching.
They're doing all of it.
Is following it. So they're assigned to a specific, because they're contractors.
They're an account manager.
Yes. Right. And that's how we've been doing it. But to your point, if this is scaled, then it makes sense for it to be, okay, researchers are here, pitchers are here. So it's a different makeup.
And then account managers would just manage they'd be client facing. And one thing that I heard recently that I think you could really relate to, and it's something that we're implementing, this guy was basically saying that clients perceive, like if you have an international team, to the clients, they perceive that person as not being as skilled as a U.S. worker, even though that perception is flawed. But they perceive that. So one thing that he did is he's like, anything on the back end, international. Anything on the front end, U.S. based. Yep, anything client facing. So your account managers could be contracted and they could manage maybe 20 or 50 people. The problem with contractors is sometimes they're not committed. So like we've had account managers that are US based that are contracted, and I'm typically managing them. Like, hey, did you follow up with Sarah? Did you follow up with Susan? Did you do this? Did you do that? And that's the big issue. Whereas when we've had full-time employees, that full-time employee can manage like 100 clients or 200 clients or 300 clients because they're all in on it.
Yeah.
And if they have a good international team, then it could really work. And you may be able to get away with 1 or 2 account managers. My husband used to do program management, and he managed mentors for a program. He had almost 300 mentors that he managed. And he was 1 person full time.
So yeah, I think it's really important right now, because what I'm struggling with is the contractor versus employee piece, right?
Yeah.
What I've decided to do, because I don't want to commit too much to too many people too early, is make everyone contract. I have 1 full-time person who's salaried, and he's the backbone of everything. Every single testimonial we have on video is them talking about him and how like on it he is. And it's really hard to like try to find another him. And so I don't want to commit, but to your point, in scaling this, I'm gonna have to figure out that structure and like
But-
what positions come in full time
Yeah.
after. And you've talked to us about like how to test that, right? Give them that,
Yeah.
60 or 30 to 60 days of like practice.
You don't have to
And see
scale
what
it before you need to. The benefit
Right.
of you getting like one of those large contracts is now you have a budget to hire someone. But what I'll say is, I personally believe employees are more committed because they do give their all to that particular job. However, it's not always the case. A lot of it is personality.
Yeah.
Like some people are just very committed people. So while you're in this phase of kind of trying it out and using contractors, hire 2 or 3 and assign them each a client and just see how they show up differently. So that when you do get the budget, they're ready to go.
That's true.
And honestly, I think that the typical employee model is dying. Because overall, people want their freedom.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to be beholden to a job where they have to show up somewhere, they have to do this, they have to do that. Ever since COVID, no one wants that. So I think that what we're gonna see is we need people who are so committed to the mission that they're showing up strongly because of the mission, not the employee classification. So that's gonna be what you look for. However, you do wanna make this like a McDonald's franchise in terms of like, the researchers do this. This is exactly how you research. This is exactly what you do. They do it all the way each time, almost like make it dummy proof. Like you don't even need them to be A+ players. And I think that's a big mistake we make as experts is we need everybody to be A+. That is why we're held back. It's like we need to have such good systems and SOPs that literally anyone can do it. So making GPTs that can help with research, making AI models that can help with research, maybe even hiring a full-time account manager overseas, but overseas doesn't have to be somewhere that's not English speaking. Overseas could be South Africa. Overseas could be anywhere where you can get more, you could afford a higher quality talent for a lower amount. And even in the United States, you can look across the country and say, what states have the lowest cost of living? Hire someone in the US there. There are some states where $12 an hour will go further than others. There are some states where $18 an hour will go further than others. And so if you look at that, and then you have teachers who we underpay in this country, which is bad, but that means that you may be able to afford to get a junior teacher to come on full time for a rate that makes sense. So really getting creative with how you can make that dollar go further. Because my 15 an hour in the Philippines just gets me like 20 times more than what my 15 an hour in Georgia is gonna get me.
No, that's facts. And I'm really, really careful now because of the quality, because we're getting that feedback of like, hey, I know y'all gonna kill it. I know because you've been doing that. And to hear, hey, everything is so clear, we get it. I don't want to lose that as we grow.
Yeah.
And that's like, as we're kind of doing the whole, okay, we're gonna go and focus on corporate now. I want to make sure that what we're doing, like you said, is completely clear so that once people come in from corporate, it's the same system. It's just a different model, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that would mean segmenting it out into pieces.
Yeah.
Because whenever we've had something that we've segmented out, we get a higher caliber of work. So even down to having like, we have someone who writes our social media captions, someone who schedules them. Not necessarily the same person because we're leveraging the global marketplace. So the person who schedules them, she's going to schedule 3 posts per day.
And
like that's her job. 3 posts per day on every single platform known to man. 5 posts per day on YouTube. And we know we're trying to grow our YouTube and we can literally see the impact of doing that. So like the process is like, I'm gonna record 30 to 60 reels every time I do my content day in one day. They're gonna take those 30, they're gonna put 3 a day or 5 a day on YouTube and every other platform 3 a day. We're gonna get our Manny chat going. Someone else makes the Manny chat, but it's like everyone has a very specific role. We had a chart made and that chart is where they put like the date, the caption, and then they check next to every place they put it. Every video has another database and that once it's scheduled, they check that off. Like it's literally like a factory for our content and you need a factory for your pitching. So it's like when we research, it's the first thing we do. The first thing you do is you go and you look at their website and you look at their website for keywords. You copy and paste all those keywords into ChatGPT. You have ChatGPT give you a list of podcasts to start with or a list of, you go on the Apple's 100 Top Business Podcasts. You like have whatever that process is.
We have our SOPs. I mean, to our team's credit, our little tiny team, we have checklists, we have our SOPs that they follow because I check.
Yeah.
For every one of our clients, we have the repeatable things that are in there. I think my brain goes into, this is a small team, we're growing, we're adding new clients on. How can I make sure that this stuff doesn't break?
I mean, it may break. Like,
yeah.
You can't, the only thing you can do is ensure that you know, without a shadow of a doubt, capacity. And that goes to segmenting your team in such a way where you know that one person can handle, with the hours that it's going to take, like every client is going to get 10 hours a month. This person works 40 hours a week. That person can handle X amount of clients per month. Like, if you know that, then that's good. And then what you want to do is operationalize and make your process so efficient that they don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think leveraging AI in those SOPs matter. So if you have written SOPs, that means you can train a GPT model. And for everyone watching, GPT models are just like, it's basically like pre-feeding AI certain information so that it can always pull from that same information. So like when we have people who need to get certain things reviewed, our team has internal AI tools that we've had coded that they can say, okay, they can put in the client's name, they can put in the client's email, and it'll give them the response. And I've already pre-trained the AI model for the structure of all the emails. So imagine if you had that for like research, or these are our common client questions, and we've taken, because we did that for our membership. We took all the 500 questions that we got and trained an AI model on like, if any of these questions come up, these are the exact right answers to give. So that when we have new coaches, they can first use our model versus just like guessing at what's going to happen. So now you take your SOPs and you don't just say, okay, well, we have SOPs. You're like, all right, how can I get tech? How can I train tech so that no matter who the people are that come in, they can now leverage tech? You really want to get it so that your team has to think minimally.
So you're blowing my mind in all the best ways, because honestly, when I think about the research piece of this, right, there's so many things that we repeat.
Yeah.
But it is complicated.
Yeah.
And there are things that we can actually add in there. For instance, when we're having conversations with a client in our strategy meeting, when they first become a client, there is data in that. That transcript can then be pulled in to say, okay, take that transcript, take their bio, take all the things. Because I'm already doing a lot of that in the back end. But if I can have a GPT do that every time and have someone on the team, like that's their responsibility to pull all that information together. And then from there, taking keywords and say, okay, all the other pieces that we do, all the research that we do, all the podcasts from all the places. I mean, we get podcasts from all over the place. I mean, we stalk people on social media. We do like all the places. We can do that and streamline that process. And now you have me thinking. So we will talk more about that particular thing. I would love to learn how you did it, or
and I can give you a referral too. And one of the things that, as you were talking about that, is you can create something where, like, one of our AI models pre-writes all our YouTube descriptions. So the first thing that it asks my team press the button like, hey, I want you to write YouTube descriptions. The AI will ask the team member, copy and paste the transcript from the YouTube video. And when it copy and paste the transcript, then it'll write the description, and then I have it give it call to actions. And then I have my team like update the call to actions based on what we're promoting at the time. But you can also do it where it's like that intake form, you tell the AI, okay, based on the, copy and paste the answers to the intake form, it does that. And then you can have it to give the top 20 competitors for that person. And then you can have it say, okay, we'll find all the podcasts that these people have been on.
First of all, we do that manually. I would love.
Yeah, use AI. Use AI. Now, it may miss some.
Yeah, of course.
But it'll give them a good start.
A good starting point.
It'll give them a really good starting point.
Especially for people that are new.
Yep.
We're bringing in new pitchers now.
Yep.
And training them, which is why we were getting our SOPs super tight and getting checklists in. But that's a really,
and
really
even the
good
pitches,
idea.
so you can train it on your pitching philosophy so that it writes the pitches the same way each time, which has been really helpful too, is like coming up with those AI models. So there's a lot, like and then it's cool because GPTs, you can just go in ChatGPT and you'll see this little button up the top and it's like create a GPT. And you can just create it, and you're basically pre-training an AI model. You can even tell it what questions to ask your team. And it's not even something you have to hire a developer to do, but the person we use, we just found them on Fiverr. Okay. So it's not an incredibly expensive process, but just thinking through, like, turnover is a big cost, especially for small businesses. It's big for big businesses, but how can you then reduce turnover. And one thing, and really, how do you not just reduce turnover, but how do you make it so that when you have to let someone go, you can hire someone else and they can be up to speed that day? It's AI. All the way, it's AI. So it's like that, now it's like, I'm not even trying to train the person before I train the tech that can help the person. Because if I can train the tech, that's way more valuable to my business because that tech ain't leaving. The person may leave, the tech will not. So I always think like, how do I train the tech to help the person? And the
standard stays the same.
The standard stays the same, yeah.
I'm like maniacal about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because our first few clients, I told my team, you need to treat every single one of these clients like they're about to tell 100 people that we exist, right? And so every single thing that you do, every correspondence that you have, like all of this stuff matters. And then, okay, great, that was the first 10. Let's do this again. And so if we can create a structure that all the time, like that quality is there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And get your data. So, you know, when I asked you, you know, what's your success rate? And you were like, well, some people 24 hours, some people this. You can create like a client dashboard where it'll literally give you those averages in real time. So every client, you have someone who their job is to just put the information in the dashboard. How many pitches did we send out for each client? How many responses did we get for the pitches? How many people were booked per week? How long did it take that person? On average, how long is it taking? Because you may find that like 90% of your people are being booked on a show within 2 weeks. You want to be able to like definitively say that data, like, and then 100% are booked within 30 days or 100% are booked within this many days. Like we've had a 0% fail rate with all of our current clients. Everyone was booked within a certain amount of time. That, if you track those numbers specifically, you can use that in your marketing because you'll know for sure. So you just need a person who that's their job. So even for our programs, we have that. Like it's a dashboard where it's like, okay, 30% are disengaged, but 70% are engaged. Like 100% attended at least one call in the last 60 days. Like any data that we can use to show like we know where our people are from a data perspective, like that's really gonna help you to stand out too.
No, that's really smart. The only thing that we know is that we've met our metric for every single client. That's the only thing that we know for sure because it's obvious.
Yeah.
We know when we miss. And the other piece that I was tracking, full transparency because I saw somebody else tracking and I was like, I'm gonna track that, is podcast on air time. So how many minutes for, you know, all of our clients, how many minutes have they actually been on podcasts to say it's been 10,000 hours or whatever the case. So we've been tracking that for all of our clients as well. But I love what you're talking about because it's more directly connected to sales.
And to time, because that's the biggest in people's mind when they hire that service, like how long is it going to take?
That's true.
Because even today when I was looking at hiring someone and she was like 6 months, I was like, that's a long time. You know what I mean? And I was literally like, 6 months, I can get myself booked in a month if I just, you know, focus on it. Yeah, so it's like, why does it take so, like that seems like too long, you know? But if you know, like if we were to pitch for speakers and we could say we pitched 100 speakers, within 30 days, 100% have gotten booked, we would be rich. Like it would be easy because they'd be like, oh,
of course,
I'm definitely paying this money. I'm definitely doing this, you know? And so I think that anything, because people we want instant gratification.
I've never said that. I've literally never said that. I don't think I've ever said that in a sales. Girl, I'm tripping.
Yeah.
To say that we have not only booked every client a podcast every month, we've booked at least 3 for every single client that we've ever had.
That's
so
a huge
we have
stat.
Met that metric. I've never said that.
The biggest objections people have to buying are time, money, and whether or not they're going to be able to do it. Like time, money, and whether or not like they can actually get the result. But if you could take away the time objection and then you could take away the result objection because like they know you're doing it for them, and then it's just the money objection, but then even that doesn't really matter if like podcasts are the most profitable form of media. It'd be hard for you not to get a client if you're on podcasts every month.
Because we're not just booking you and be like, all right, you're booked, go have fun. It's like, no, we're literally, I'm coaching you before.
Yeah.
You go on there, you kill it, and then I'm calling you after and be like, all right, so this is what we're going to do. You're going to follow up with this way. Okay, so they talked about this partnership or they're doing this conference. You need to, you know what I mean? Like, so we're really game planning every single podcast you're on, right? And so that's 15 in 3 months. That's a huge
You're going to make money from that. Like 1,000%. Our 6-figure plan before we made our first 6 figures was live video every week, podcast every month, and that was it. We didn't run ads. You know, like we only used other people's platforms, like speaking in Facebook groups was another one. all of those have in common that we were speaking in front of other people's audiences every single month because we didn't have a large audience of our own. But that's how we grew our audience, that and influencer marketing. Like those are the big four. And like that got us to our first 6 figures back then. And even now I'm like, okay, when I went to Funnel Hacking Live, the first thing I did was book podcasts.
I saw that.
That was the first thing that I did. I was like, anyone want me to be on their podcast? I was posted in groups. I was like, I'm going to be in Vegas on this date. Like, where do you want me to go? Like, let's go. Because it helps you to leverage the moment.
That's
like, it's a really good way to go. So you have in terms of marketing, I think podcasts are incredible. Yeah. So now it's just letting people know, because even if they don't say that's an objection, their biggest, in their mind, they're like, if they're on the call with you, they probably have the money. So their biggest objection is like, how long is this going to take to work? If you could show them, we've helped some people in 24 hours, others but everyone within 30 days, there's no reason they wouldn't try that out.
By the way, I have a masterclass coming up probably after this goes live, but in next week. And I'm absolutely...
You're going to say that. Yeah, you have to say that.
I can't believe I've never actually led with that. That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's a shame. But that's, for me, that is a huge piece from all the things that you just said, is like tracking all of the things that are tied to those potential objections.
Yep.
Right? To be able to talk specifically to that. Like, hey, we've actually booked, because that's what I do when I'm talking to somebody who's in like life sciences, or if they're in, legal field or whatever. Yep. I'm always using someone that we've worked with directly, be like, hey, yeah, we've actually gotten these kinds of results, right? We've gotten them on these kinds of podcasts before, but I've never really gone into like, no, you're definitely I can actually guarantee that.
Yeah. And track the time and then track the money. So like, hey, how many leads did you get? So always have them track, like one thing we tracked for at FHL was, where was our social media following before? Where was it after? So I knew we had gotten close to 1,000 followers because I tracked my following before. We went in at 120, we came out at 121. I was like, okay, that's 1,000 new people, which is great. And then the leads and then the DMs and then the actual email addresses that we got. So you want to really make sure that people are tracking that and then giving you that data. Like before you came in, where were you at now?
The only thing that we offer right now, which is starting that process, because not everybody is super active in tracking their own stuff, is using like a Bitly link. And so it's a unique link for each podcast that they go on. It's the same offer URL, but basically to see, okay, from that, how many people have actually clicked on that link?
Yeah.
Right? And then from that piece, how many people have actually taken action from that? But that's the only thing that we've been really doing. But you're right, like following up and making sure that that's a conversation that we're having ongoing with people. It just kind of depends. Some people are on it and they'll tell us. And others, I know they ain't tracking nothing. So
yeah. But it's good. Like, it's even good for you to just have someone like, okay, this is where their social following is before the tour. This is where their social following is after the tour. This is where they're like, who's on your email list? This is where it is before. This is where their group is before. Like, this verifiable numbers that you could just get in their intake, and then you just ask them where it's at after. And even if they don't attribute 100% of it to the tour, they'd have to attribute some of it to it. So you're like, hey, what we see overall is their social following grows, but between the beginning of the tour and the end. Because people don't, like, this is basically like, if we were graphic designers, our client success would be our portfolio. So we got to be more dogged about tracking that, because we have more of an incentive even than they do to track those numbers, because we want to be able to tell those stories to help other people to see we're actually serious about what we do. So you do want to track some of that.
Again, I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, that is something we absolutely can put in our dashboard of like, okay, when they're coming in, when we're onboarding them, like putting all of that together and just having it on a spreadsheet. And after their first 6 months with us, like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that would be good. So what are you going to do differently now as a result of this hot seat?
When I tell you on Monday, we have our team meetings, I'm going to talk to them about that GPT piece, because we've been talking about, like, how do we make sure that we can automate a lot of the things that we're doing? How can we make sure that quality runs throughout? That's a huge part of it. We've been doing the thing. Yeah. Right? We know what we're doing. We've had it written down. Now, can we plug in and make it even more efficient? Like, efficiency is like my thing. So that piece. And then also, going back to the corporate offer, couching it in personal branding. I think because I've been a graphic designer for so long, and personal branding came in as like the Canva,
Yeah.
like it's very, like the gamut is huge
Yeah, it
as to
is.
what personal branding is. And I always wanted to be intentional about if I ever entered that space and said that out of my mouth, I knew what I was actually
Yeah.
trying to. I liked the idea of connecting visibility, personal branding in a corporate setting
Yeah.
and letting them know, hey, there's a new way or a new-ish way
Yeah.
to do that. So those two things, like when I do pitch, not necessarily leading with the underrepresented piece necessarily, but making sure that the personal branding piece is there. So that part for corporate, the GPT for optimizing how we do what we do. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is tracking the right things that are tied directly to sales, tied directly to people's typical objections when they're talking
Yeah.
to me. I think it's just like I'm in conversation and wanting to learn about people, and that's really how I make most of my sales.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for people to know, like, nah, we do this.
Yeah.
Like we here are the numbers, right? And being able to really track that. So I'm gonna listen back to this when it goes live to make sure that we are tracking more things that are tied directly to that, because then I can use that in our sales pitches.
I love that. I
So, a
love
lot.
that. Well, let our audience know where they can find you, where they can work with you, and how they can get booked on podcasts if they want to work with your agency.
Absolutely. So CarroleeMoore.com has pretty much all of our things, whether you want to do a done-for-you service with Podcast Pitching Society. I also am a brand messaging coach, which is the undergirth of all the things when it comes to pitching yourself and telling your story better on podcasts. So if you don't feel like you're ready for being out into the world, we can actually start there. I've started with a few different people to do that. And then last but certainly not least, I'm Carrolee Moore on all the grown up socials, so LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm not on anywhere else, so that's it.
Okay, I love that. Okay, guys, this was another great hot seat coaching episode. If you got value out of this and you watched all the way to the end, I want you to write the keyword orange in the comments so I can see you and celebrate you. And then also share this with 3 people because there's so much good information in here. And lastly, I have a huge announcement. I am going on tour. It's called the Your First Corporate Offer Tour. I cannot wait. I'm coming to a city near you, and I want you to get on the wait list. Last time we did this tour, it sold out from the wait list, and you don't want to miss it because on the day tickets open, y'all, they're only going to be $99 for an in-person tour spot. Now, if you're seeing this after they've already sold out, they're only going to be that rate for the day they open. So don't be coming to me in the comments like, oh, now they're $300. I already told y'all they're only going to be that rate the day they open, and they're opening to the wait list first. So get on the wait list for the tour. We're coming to DC, New York, Chicago. Where else are we going? We're going to Atlanta. We're going to Houston. We're going to Dallas. Okay. So check it out. And don't say, oh, you're not coming to my city. Fly to the nearest city to you, because this is not something you want to miss, and it will sell out. And we're only releasing 50 seats initially per city. 50 seats initially per city, okay? So I want to make sure that you all get in while you can. We're trying to sell this out the day that the seats open. So go and get on the wait list now so that when we open tickets in March, you are in the building, okay? I want to meet you in person. If you like it virtually, imagine how you'd love it in person. I want to see you at the Your First Corporate Offer Tour, okay? So check out this episode. Have a good time. If it was good, let me know. I read all the comments. And thank you guys so much. We're almost at our first goal for our subscriber count. So please subscribe, like this, and I will see y'all next time. Talk to you soon.
Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. I need energy, need only good people that's around me. All the faith you can give, that's the recipe.